Welcome to the Fallon Forum. That's Brother Trucker and their tune Downtown. We're going to be talking today with Mary LaHaye, who is a local animal rights advocate who is, no, we're not talking Crazy Peter. She's really good. She does fantastic work, as do many great local organizations. We're going to talk with her about the in so many ways wrong ruling by the court regarding this guy who he killed a puppy because he didn't like the way it was treating his carpet. That part is reprehensible, but I just do not understand the court's ruling on this. We'll talk about that to the second half of today's program. We've got quite a week coming up for you as well, folks. I'm pretty excited about the diversity of programming we've got lined up this week. Just to start it off, looking at, I got to tell you about my walk this weekend, okay? We'll talk about that, too. That was fascinating. But I want to get back to today's main topic, and that's, besides having Mary LaHaye on, the Branstad, again, I just cannot, every time I say he's digging the hole deeper, he just goes even further. It's just remarkable. We'll talk about that today. But tomorrow I'm excited. Somebody who I don't agree with much is going to join me. Pat Bertroche is going to come on, and we're going to talk about the Iowa juvenile home in Toledo, the reprehensible situation there that does not seem to be going away either. Tomorrow also, every Tuesday, we have a new beat on learning. We're going to talk more about the Montessori program at Coles Elementary School here in Des Moines. Wednesday, Adam Mason with Iowa CCI is going to join us. We're going to talk about that group's Fix the Debt campaign. And also, I see that Bruce Rastetter wrote an opinion piece in the Des Moines Register this weekend about the future of agriculture. And for anybody interested in sustainability, organics, local agriculture, small family farms, even family farms, you probably won't like Rastetter's vision. It's really, really warm and fuzzy if you are a big corporation interested in controlling the food production system across the world. We'll talk about that on Wednesday. Also, very excited to have Julia Trigg Crawford joining us. Who is she? She's just a family farmer. She and her family farm down in Texas, and they're in the path of TransCanada's pipeline, and it has not gone well for them. She's going to join us Wednesday to talk about the incredible injustices that they are experiencing due to this pipeline being built. Thursday, new research is in, and apparently more and more Americans are living in poverty for at least part of their lives. It's actually to the point where I think 4 out of every 5 Americans experience poverty in their lives. That's way higher than it ever was before. It's not looking good. We're going to talk about that, why, and what we can do about it. We're also going to talk on Thursday with Dr. Dick Deming, who is in the last, that will be the last day of the $1 Million Marathon. And he'll be phoning us from the marathon's finish on the Atlantic Ocean in Delaware. We're excited to hear about how that's turning out. Friday, Connie Ryan Terrell with the Interfaith Alliance of Iowa. We'll talk with her about a recent opinion piece she wrote regarding the education bill that the legislature passed, and also her perspective on the homeschooling component of that bill. We'll also get an update on the Big Latch On. That's a breastfeeding event coming up. There's 4 or 5 events in Iowa, but the one here in Des Moines, Saturday, to again remind people how important breastfeeding is from a health point of view, but also to kind of push society forward on being more accepting of that as a natural thing that you do in public. We're also going to talk about, in the Friday segment that we call the Climate Beat, we're going to talk about some of the interesting people who are signing up to march across the country next year as part of the Great March for Climate Action. So we've got a busy week planned and a lot of diversity, and I hope you'll tune in and feel free to be a part of the conversation. And today, again, the first half hour, wide open. I'm going to talk about the Branstad. Again, it is remarkable to me how many bad decisions he's making. But before I talk about that, let me throw out the phone number, 244-0077. If you want to join the conversation at any point, 244-0077. Or toll free, it's 855-244-0077. All right, so I have to walk a lot. because I'm going to walk across the country next year, 3,000 miles, and you don't just do that off your sofa. You got to get in good shape, and I'm in good shape. I bike all the time. But I've discovered that biking muscles are not the same as walking muscles. In fact, I think biking muscles must be pretty unique to biking. I'm not sure what else they're good for. But at any rate, I've been walking more, but I have not walked. I haven't walked 10 miles or more in a long, long time. I did that this weekend. And that was after a 23-mile bike ride, I might add. So I walked all the way from Altoona to Des Moines. Nice, John. And I guess it was really fascinating. I mean, yeah, I forgot about how important it is to protect against sunburn, even on a very pleasant, cool day. Mistake there. And I also, it's a lot of work to walk that far. But what I enjoyed about it more than anything was the meditative quality of it. I'd forgotten how the whole thing. I mean, especially as you get into it. I mean, the first couple miles, I'm on busy roads. I'm kind of just really, really paying attention to traffic, and then you get into the more residential neighborhoods. Sidewalks appear, nice. And you get some shade. You start taking some back roads, walking through alleys, and it really becomes a meditation. And you also slow down, and your thinking slows down. You get to process things you don't often have a chance to really dig into in your mind, and you get to see things you often don't even notice. I mean, I've never really walked through the alleys on the east side of Des Moines. There are some beautiful places back there. Beautiful not because they're groomed that way, but because they're somewhat wild, actually, and unpredictable. Wild not in terms of activity, in terms of trees and things that normally would be more subject to more grooming. It was kind of nice to see that. I passed parties of Latinos having barbecues. You wouldn't normally see that when you're just scooting by in your car or on your bike even. Saw a guy out sitting in front of the historical building playing the violin. One of those guys who holds a violin, or we can call it a fiddle, holds that fiddle real low. He didn't have a hat on, wasn't collecting tips, wasn't even near where people were walking, just playing. He was playing. When I walked by, he was playing Dixie. He was playing it really, really well. It was fun. And then a guy walks by me, young guy, no shirt on, really bad. I mean, lots of layers of fat there. Okay, it was not what you would call an attractive physique. It was also for some reason completely hairless, but he had this phenomenal mural on his chest. I mean, I didn't want to stare at it too long, but I was just amazed at how much effort had been. It almost wasn't really a tattoo. Maybe it was a tattoo, but it almost looked like a mural. That's just a mural on your belly and on your chest. I thought that was. I would not do that myself, but I thought it was pretty interesting. Later on, I came to a guy who was all agitated in a friendly, fun way about water balloons. He had a basket of water balloons, and he asked me to throw one at him. I obliged. I hit him in the chest. It exploded, and we all felt good about that. Anyway, just the things you see when you're out walking. You hear the cicadas in the trees in the evening. I walked by St. Paul's Cathedral, and the bells were just about ready to ring, so I stopped. And I listened to the bells, and I was reminded just how pure the sound of a bell is compared to so many other musical instruments. And I play a lot, and I know that when you play a note, you can get lots of different harmonics, lots of different tones, lots of different notes in one note. With a bell, you get that note. It's very clear, very straightforward. And you don't appreciate that unless you take the time to stop and listen, which I did. I also looked at the mural on the wall of the Pace Building. Used to be the old First Baptist Church in downtown Des Moines. That mural, God, I passed it 100 times, but I never stopped to look at it. It is really sensational. It is a powerful statement on the potential for youth to move through crisis. And it wasn't like these are young people who we are helping. The mural says these are young people who are helping themselves. When given the right tools, the right environment, some encouragement, they help themselves. And it goes from a very bleak display on the left side of the mural, and as you wrap around to the end, the picture gets more and more positive. But you don't just glance at it and see that. You got to study it, and I'd never done that before. I'd never studied this mural before. Beautiful, powerful. I got to figure out who the artist was and if possible, thank them. Anyway, if you see it, folks, it's on High Street, High and 8th, I believe, 8th and High. And you got to go around the back of the building to look at it. But again, especially if you're walking, you're more inclined to notice it. So, yeah, it was a wonderful experience, and I look forward to doing more of these walks, longer ones. Again, if folks are interested in walking, there's a group of us that walk every Wednesday at 6 p.m., usually at Gray's Lake, to kind of get ready for next year's march. Anyway, obviously the focus of the march is on climate change, but I think there's a real personal transformation element to this as well. Something that I'm already beginning to experience just with the walking I've been doing, and especially yesterday's walk was, again, a very unique experience. All right, so I'm afraid I have to switch gears from positive stuff to some unfortunate stuff. Governor Branstad, how many ways does this guy not get it? I mean, I really think for the first time, I've always felt Branstad was invincible. I mean, it was really clear he was going to trounce Chet Culver. I think this time the guy can be beat, and I don't even have any feel for which candidate on the Democratic side might do that, or even if an independent might arise to do that. And don't brush off independents. I mean, that happens way too often. Again, Minnesota had an independent governor. Maine has had one recently. There may be other states that I'm forgetting. Independents running for governor tend to do a lot better than independents running for state legislatures. I mean, we have a couple or three now, at least two in Congress. So do not brush that possibility off as well. I think for the right candidate, Governor Branstad is very, very vulnerable. So here's one reason why. Okay, so because of the lawsuit, because of the action against Larry Hedlund, the DCI agent, the Department of Criminal Investigation, he'd worked there 25 years without any discipline, nothing ever against him. And he got fired 2 days after he was suspended after reporting the speeding incident in northern Iowa, and then subsequently fired. Again, the firing seems like a really, really bad idea on Branstad's part. And I do not understand why he didn't say, "Hey, we're sorry about this. We didn't mean to be speeding. Bad on us. We're not going to fire this guy, and we're also going to pay the fine of the state trooper." Okay, because of all the public attention, the state trooper gets a fine. It's $181.50. That state trooper Steve Lawrence gets a fine. We find out about this fine late last week on Saturday, actually. And apparently that fine was paid by a credit card. Well, it didn't say who paid it. Well, now we know. Now we know. It was Hedlund. It was the guy who lost his job. It was the guy that Branstad fired. Yeah, and I'm saying Branstad. I know that Branstad will pass the buck and say, no, it was some other element of state government. But we know where the buck stops. We know who makes these decisions, especially when you get to something that's this high profile, where, I mean, it's not just being talked about in Iowa, it's being talked about around the country, especially in that situation. You know the governor has a role to play. Yeah. Just as I know that when the Occupy Wall Street movement came, when there was a presence here in Des Moines at the state capitol, I know that Branstad was involved with the decision to have us all evicted from the state capitol grounds. You know, you just know when things are that prominent, the governor is weighing in. He may not want to take credit or blame, but he is weighing in, rest assured. Okay, so Larry Hedlund this weekend confirmed to the Des Moines Register that he was the one who paid that ticket, the $181.50 speeding ticket that was issued to Trooper Steve Lawrence, the guy driving the car that Branstad was in, the car that went 84 miles an hour. Again, a trooper pulled up by that car intending to give it a ticket, saw it was the governor and the lieutenant governor, let it go. And that's what started the whole conversation that Hedlund had about whether he acted appropriately. He was basically apologizing for not doing his job. And what happens? He loses his job. But to show you what kind of a class act he is, I mean, he wasn't asked to pay this ticket. He had no reason he had to pay this ticket, but he felt bad that the trooper was speeding, and that his involvement in this had called out the situation. Again, the trooper probably would have never been cited a ticket had this not become so public. So Hedlund pays the ticket after reading news accounts that Branstad, quote, had no intention of stepping up and doing so. I mean, Branstad could have diffused this thing on so many opportunities. Again, he could have refused to fire Hedlund, say, okay, we'll let you back in. He could have apologized profusely instead of trying to find a way out of the fact that he was speeding, that his driver was speeding. He could have paid the fine. I mean, he just keeps making really poor decisions. And I'm used to Branstad making poor decisions when it comes to policy. What surprises me is the extent to which Branstad is making poor decisions when it comes to matters of a political nature. I mean, this is politics. Again, in the big scheme of things, his driver doing 84 miles an hour is not, I mean, it could have been a real problem to somebody had there been an accident, but in the big scheme of things, it's not a huge issue. But it is huge. It is huge in a symbolic way, and it has incredible political ramifications. And the governor seems to be unable to understand that. Okay, so Hedlund goes on to say, quote, I know that this trooper who got the fine, Steve Lawrence, was behind the wheel, but this was never about getting him in trouble. Hedlund describes his own involvement. It was about the public safety issue. So he also goes on to say, under no circumstances would any state trooper who cares anything about his career, with the governor sitting behind him, drive 90 miles an hour unless he knows that that's acceptable behavior. In other words, I mean, he's exactly right. I really want to see Branstad try to talk his way out of this one. No trooper's going to do that and risk his job. No, he knows he's breaking the law. He's not going to do that unless he has a very, very clear sense that it's what the governor wants him to do. Anyway, Hedlund, again, class act. He had no contact with the trooper, with Lawrence, before paying the ticket. He just did it and then sent an email to him after the fact. So, again, Lawrence, Hedlund, you're something. I'm very impressed. You've handled yourself very well. We'll see where the court case goes on this. There's more to talk about on this as well. And we will. I got to take a short break. I want to get back to that in just a minute here, folks. But I do want to take a short break and thank our sponsors, the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club, also Iowa Physicians for Social Responsibility, and the Great March for Climate Action. And I want to thank Gateway Marketing Cafe for sponsoring this segment of our show. And I will warn the folks at Gateway that I'm coming your way later today because I am out of all sorts of critical ingredients. And I really love the fact that Gateway gets so much from local sources. Picket Fence Dairy, for example. I love your Picket Fence Dairy stuff, and I have a couple things I've got to buy in that category. Also, some vegetables. Believe it or not, the vegetable farmer, he's out of some vegetables. Some things just aren't happening this year. Potatoes. The Irish vegetable farmer, out of potatoes. I'm glad Gateway Market has them. I'll be down there later, folks. I also want to thank Kim Holding and Story County Veterinary Clinic for sponsoring this segment of our show, along with Dan Kelly and Dan Kelly's Real Estate Industry. Again, I love to use the word industry and Dan Kelly in the same sentence. Dan Kelly's Real Estate Business in Newton. Give him a shout if you want to buy or sell something in Newton. Also, I want to thank Community CPA and Associates for sponsoring this segment of our show, and Diana's Wedding Cakes. Diana's Wedding Cakes also is out of Newton. I'll be back in just a couple minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait.
Howdy.
And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going, man.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back, folks. That is Baber's Neighbors. And I want to thank the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit for sponsoring this segment of our show. And remind folks that coming up on November 9th. November 9th is the IES, the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit. That's a great event for anyone wanting to start or expand their small business. I also want to thank Max Wellman for helping to sponsor this segment of the show, and Sergeant's Garage. I'll be back to some Max music during the final segment, or the third segment of the show, when Mary LaHaye joins us to talk about the really horrific ruling on the animal cruelty case. But I got to wrap up our conversation on Larry Hedlund, again, who I just so impressed with how he's handled this. I wish, Governor Branstad should really learn from this guy. Okay. Here's one thing that's coming out of this. Okay. The officials said regarding that speeding incident, that speeding incident apparently prompted this recommendation from the Iowa State Patrol to, quote, strengthen the policy that outlines how troopers are supposed to, act and behave regarding reinforcing language on vehicle operations. I mean, here's what it says. Okay, I'll just read it to you. The language says right now, it stresses that, quote, while providing transportation for the governor, first lady, lieutenant governor, and other dignitaries, executive protection unit troopers, those are troopers within a certain unit of the State Patrol, are subject to rules, requirements, and restrictions imposed by law and applicable department standards, and will operate state vehicles in accordance with state rules. Basically, it says that even when you are hauling big dudes around the state, you still have to obey all the laws. The state troopers know this. I mean, they've got to know this. And the only exception is if they are rushing off to do something to deal with some kind of criminal activity or some emergency. But getting the governor to the next fundraising event, or to even a ribbon cutting event, or whatever it could be, that doesn't qualify as allowing you to speed and break the law. I mean, it's really, really clear. So here's my question: what is the Department of Public Safety? What is the Iowa State Patrol? How do they want to strengthen that? How can that get any stronger? I mean, this is what it seems like to me. It seems to me that it's this. They know they've got trouble, PR trouble, political trouble. for the governor, really. I mean, I don't think this really reflects badly on the State Patrol or the Department of Public Safety, except to the extent that the governor is working them to come up with the most favorable spin on how he looks coming out of this. So they're trying to help him out like this. I mean, because they're part of the administration. They're part of the whole, that branch of state government. And so they are trying to trying to make it clear they're committed to making the strongest possible policy. Well, I'd be really interested in seeing what they recommend to the legislature, because I don't know how you make that any stronger. I mean, it says really clear, really emphatically, that you've got to be subject to the rules, to the requirements and restrictions imposed by law, even when carrying the governor. So I don't know what they're going to do. I'll be interested in seeing how state lawmakers involved with the committees that would normally deal with that sort of thing respond. Okay, one other angle on this. Again, I know this is an attempt by Governor Branstad to make this look like we've got an objective voice in analyzing whether the dismissal of Larry Hedlund was appropriate. Okay. Now, I also have a lot of respect for Justice Louis Lavaretto, who was the former head of the Supreme Court. I don't know anybody who doesn't. Maybe there's somebody out there, but he's pretty well respected. That's not the issue. The issue is, Governor Branstad just decides to appoint him to conduct an independent review into the firing of Larry Hedlund. I mean, but here's the problem: this is Governor Branstad is making that appointment. Who else? Who can not see that as a problem? Yeah, I don't care if you're appointing the most. You could appoint Mother Teresa. I don't care who. You pick your most spotless person in the world. I mean, and Louis Lavaretto comes close. He's a decent guy. He's got a reputation. He's fair. He's respected. He's been doing mediation since retirement. But for the governor to make the appointment, that's the problem. It taints the whole process. If you really wanted to see this happen in a way that you would be beyond reproach, then ask some independent authority. Maybe pick a few legislators from both chambers, balance it Democrat and Republican, ask them to come up with somebody that would conduct this investigation. But don't pick the guy yourself. I mean, again, nothing against Lavaretto, just against the governor. I mean, I'm just criticizing the governor's decision making here, and I'm not getting why somebody who has for so long been so astute at the political side of things would think that would make sense. You basically get to appoint the guy who's going to rule on whether the worker that you got fired was fired inappropriately. Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of other people too who feel that it is pretty inappropriate. Of course, obviously the lawyer defending Larry Hedlund, said that, quote, "It would be hard-pressed to reach a fair conclusion when relying on manufactured, defamatory, and slanderous material that is included in this 500-page report that the state issued." So, again, if that's what it's based on, yeah, it's no one's going to come up with an alternative viewpoint. So Branstad is trying to cover his bases here, and probably going to do so. But I hope that we aren't fooled, that we will be paying attention and will demand more legitimate accountability. All right, folks, we're going to switch gears here and talk about a really, really sad, reprehensible case involving a guy who beat a dog to death with a baseball bat. It's almost hard to talk about this stuff, but we need to talk about it because the courts failed in the realm of justice on this case. And the question is why? I'm pretty sure that we're going to, I know we're going to have an interesting conversation with Mary LaHaye, but I think what we're going to come out with is the sense that maybe the courts did their job, but the laws themselves are where we are falling down. Anyway, we're going to talk about that shortly. I do want to thank again the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit for sponsoring this segment of our show, and all the businesses that help make this program possible, including Ritual Cafe at 13th and Locust, one of my favorite places for a cup of tea, a smoothie, a panini, and music. I'll be back in just 2 minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends.
Where?
I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician.
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed rider, it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm not the guy who cared about love. I'm not the guy who cared about fortunes and such. Never
Welcome back.
much. Oh, look at me now.
Thank you for sticking with us, folks, as we continue our conversation today on the Fallon Forum. That's Max Wellman. Love Max's tunes, and I would really tell you, folks, you ought to subscribe to his songbook project. You get a CD in the mail every month or so, and it's always really, really great stuff. I want to thank the Fighting Burrito for helping to sponsor this segment of our show. They're at 13th and Locust in downtown Des Moines. Also at 117 Welch Ave in Ames. Fighting Burrito, where you can basically make your own burrito. I think about a million different combinations, and you can do it for a very affordable price. Okay, back to our conversation here. The very I mean, it was one of those things you don't even want to read. It's so horrific. Zach Meerdink, 31-year-old man, had beaten his Boston Terrier, a 7-month-old Boston Terrier. Again, a pup, still learning the ropes. Apparently messing up the floor of his girlfriend's apartment. And apparently had been acting out as well. The guy beat him. He beat the puppy to death with a baseball bat, and I think everybody thought, oh my gosh, what a horrible thing. Surely that's a crime. Well, apparently 2 weeks ago, the Iowa Court of Appeals tossed out the original conviction and saying that Meerdink acted, saying the prosecutors failed to prove that Meerdink acted with a, quote, depraved or sadistic intent to cause death. And I think a lot of us are wondering, what? How can that be? I mean, how can anybody, I mean, first of all, how can anybody do that? How could anybody do that to a dog or any animal for that matter? And how can our laws not be clear enough to make a conviction against something like that stand up? I don't get that. Maybe Mary LaHaye does. Maybe Mary LaHaye understands this better than I because she works in this area a lot and does fantastic work. And hopefully you've been able to dig into this more than I've had time for, because my mind is unable to grasp why that is not a crime.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've been watching the letters to the editor in the Des Moines Register, but there have been quite a few people writing in. And of course, I've heard from many, many people who also just do not understand how this came to be as far as changing this conviction. And the only solace I can provide is that our animal welfare laws are just really not good. As a matter of fact, there's a national group, the Animal Legal Defense Fund, that does a rating of all of the state's laws every year. And Iowa ranks third from the bottom right now. Even Guam ranks above us in animal welfare laws. So we've got a lot of work to do.
Third from the bottom. That's
third from the bottom.
You know, in a state that likes to pride itself for being ahead of the curve on a lot of things, marriage equality, for example, some of the court rulings of the past relevant to segregation and racial equality. That's not consistent with our mojo. Yeah.
It's not. And I guess what's happened is we just haven't had anyone working on this to the degree that we are now. The solace I'm providing is that we're working on it.
Now, when I was in the legislature, there was a horrible case in Fairfield involving people who, and I'm trying to remember the details now. I think they went into a kennel or a shelter and actually just killed a bunch of animals.
A bunch of cats, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I remember that there was a legislative response. There was outrage. A bill was passed, and maybe that's the bill that was brought into the court conversation on this case. But we thought we had kind of addressed the need for stronger laws on this.
Right. And I'm sorry to say I wasn't active in this realm at that time.
It was back in the 90s, yeah.
But, if you look at the laws now, animal torture, which is what they initially convicted this gentleman of, does require a depraved or sadistic intent. And
how was that not depraved and sadistic? I mean, beating a puppy to death with a baseball bat. How is that not depraved?
And I don't know exactly. My understanding is that someone would have to have seen evidence of this sadistic intent, and apparently, like if he'd been smiling or something like that, they could have done something more with it. I don't really quite understand that, but for whatever reason, they couldn't.
The reference in the story in the newspaper says evidence showed that Meerdink did not appear happy about the beating,
and
at first tried other ways to change the puppy's behavior.
Right.
I mean, okay.
Right. So
he didn't feel happy about beating a dog to death. Somehow that makes it less offensive. I mean, I don't get that at all. I mean, I don't remember all the details of the debate on the animal torture. And it might have been right close to the year 2000. I can't quite remember when we did this, but the happy thing. I mean, so he was unhappy that he had to do that. I mean, I really don't. I don't understand where the court's coming from. I really don't.
Well, and I'm sure it comes down to definitions of those two words. So I think we need to eliminate those words from the law.
So which words?
Well, the definition of animal torture is a person's guilty of torture if the person inflicts upon the animal severe physical pain with a depraved or sadistic intent to cause prolonged suffering or death.
Okay.
Take those words out of there. Physical pain with an intent to cause prolonged suffering or death. Get those words out of there. Then, even more troubling to me in our current law, 717B, which is injury to animals other than livestock, is the definition for animal abuse. Now, this case he could have been charged with this, except our current animal abuse law does not apply to the owner of the animal.
Really?
That doesn't make any sense at all. So it only a person who does something to an animal that they don't own.
So if we applied the same, and I don't want to go too far with the comparison, but if we applied the same standard to children, it'd be okay to it'd be wrong to abuse somebody else's kid, but not your own.
Correct.
That's bizarre.
I try not to go into the realm of comparing this
Sure,
to children.
I understand.
At all,
that's why I hesitated, but still.
I know.
Yeah.
But it is, it makes no sense at all. So our organization, Iowa Voters for Companion Animals, this is exactly the kind of stuff that we want to work on and we will be working on. In fact, we have a bill that we're working on. We're prepping for hopefully getting it introduced in January. And this is part of what we'll be addressing.
And have you had any conversations with lawmakers yet?
A few. I can't say as I'm in a place where I can talk a lot about it, but this is exactly the kind of thing that we need grassroots organizations to do. We don't get the laws that we absolutely need. We get the laws that we ask for and that we demand. And this is the kind of law that a lot of Iowans care deeply about. And the argument I hear over and over again is it's because we're an agricultural state. We can't afford to have a lot of good animal welfare laws. Well, I don't accept that because as a matter of fact, Illinois, another hugely agriculture state, ranks number one in that ranking of the Animal Legal Defense Fund. So it doesn't add up. So
what can you give me some examples of how Illinois law differs from Iowa law? What makes them number one and us number 47?
The
48.
All of the variables that are involved in that ranking, there are so many. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to just rattle off any.
But again, your point is they're an agricultural state, and we have that happen all the time. And really, I'm a big believer in increased animal welfare standards for farm animals as well. And I think you can, and really a lot of the rub there comes from the bigger industrial operations that raise animals in confinement. And I think I don't buy, when I buy meat, and it doesn't happen, I don't buy that much meat, but when I do, I get it from farmers who raise it sustainably. You don't raise animals in conditions that I would find deplorable. But you would think we'd be able to separate, even though there are legitimate concerns in both areas. You'd think we'd be able to separate that from issues relevant to pets, companion animals.
Well, and our welfare laws are differentiated between ag animals and non-agriculture animals.
Right.
We do have separate laws. So
but you do hear the conversation does run in that direction. Yeah,
yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And it doesn't need to.
Tell us I tell you, we've got to run to a break, but when we come back, I'd like to hear more about the organization you work with. And I can never quite, I always stumble as I try to get the entire thing out. Iowa
Voters for Companion Animals.
Voters for Companion Animals. And if pets could vote, you'd have a clear majority for doing the right kind of thing. But Iowa Voters for Companion Animals. Let me get a little bit more sense about, your organization. And then I'd like to hear a bit more about what we expect the prospects to be. The next legislative session is a little bit far away, but still it's not a bad time to be thinking about what might happen and what needs to happen to get that conversation moving forward. So, Mary will be back in a few minutes. We'll talk more about this issue. Again, I want to thank all the entities that help sponsor this program. And again, for the full list of businesses, organizations, and events that make this show possible, go to my website, fallonforum.com, fallonforum.com, and check out the support page, and you can see who's behind us and support them and make sure that they know that their support for this is appreciated. I'll be back in just 2 minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Down this river without a plane.
Looks great. We're back, folks. I have to wear a hat, Mary, because I have this glare thing going on. I mean, that dome is so blinding. I mean, I've literally had viewers, audience members, who've had to go to the hospital with retina damage because of the glare of my forehead. So you're not believing me, are you?
No.
No. All right. Well.
Well, at least it wasn't a seizure.
It wasn't a seizure, yes.
Chris did a commercial once that he created for the Iowa Barnstormers, and it gave some people seizures.
Why?
Because it was too flashy with the lights and the too fast, I guess.
Oh, dear.
So
he's a bad man.
Horrible.
Okay. Well, I think he can be forgiven. That's probably accidentally causing injury, but
yes.
But yeah, for people who cause injuries to animals intentionally. Yeah, we've got some work to do, and I do want to hear, Mary, about the prospects for success at the legislative level next year. But Maddie has done her due diligence during the break and looked up some information about Illinois. Now, you mentioned that Illinois is ranked number 1 in the nation in terms of its laws relevant to animal cruelty. Mm-hmm. Iowa ranked 48th. Mm-hmm. Ouch. Maddie, what do you see in your review of the just your cursory review of the material regarding Illinois?
Well, first I'll bring up Iowa so that people can have an understanding of the contrast. But there are 14 things on this table, like provisions for animals, and then it's a table which marks which states have these, which states don't. And out of the 14, Iowa only has 4. And then I'll scroll up here. And then out of the 14, Illinois has all but 3.
Okay, and so what are some of those standards?
In Illinois, they have adequate definitions and standards for basic care of animals.
And we don't here.
Well, it depends on what you're talking about. Commercial breeding, for example, is different from other applications. I'd have to know more about what they were looking at.
Yeah, there aren't definitions as to what animals they're specifically talking about, so you do have to take care to check into that. But from a quick reading, that's what we have. And then let's see, increased penalties for repeat abusers and or animal hoarders.
Hoarders?
People who have just tons of animals in their house.
Okay. Like the crazy cat lady that
has like 50 cats. Yes. Yeah. Courts may order forfeiture of abused animals in Illinois. There are felony penalties available for cruelty, neglect, fighting, abandonment, and sexual assault. In Iowa, there are statutory penalties available for that, but not felony, I don't believe.
All right.
Correct. We don't have a felony conviction until your second or subsequent conviction for animal torture. And that's another thing that needs to change, that the first conviction of torture really should be a felony conviction.
Right. Yeah.
Especially given obviously this puppy beating death didn't even meet the requirements. We need to do a lot of looking at this.
That situation in Fairfield years ago was so horrific too. I mean, it seemed worse than this because it just involved so many animals, and there was nothing. This guy was provoked, you could say, because of the puppy's bad behavior. I'm not justifying it at all, but in this case in Fairfield, these kids just went in and did horrible things without any provocation at all.
Weren't they underage?
I'm not sure. I don't remember that, but again, there was a reaction statewide and at the state house to do something about it, and I'm just disappointed that we apparently didn't attach as much importance to some words as we should have, and that the court found a way out of the conviction based on those words. But
I think it's also a glaring example of what's considered status quo out there in our state so often, is that the brother of one of the gentlemen who beat those cats to death. I remember reading something about that case where his brother made the statement, "Well, who hasn't killed a cat?"
Wow. Yeah. That's really sad. Yeah.
I've never killed a cat.
No, me neither. Gosh. So the next session of the legislature, you're already in the process of discussing possibilities. I know some things you want to keep close to your chest. I know as you lobby, because there will be people coming at you from the other side who want no action. But what are you at liberty to share, and what can people do who are concerned about this?
Well, our organization's primary focus is on the commercial dog breeding industry, what are often referred to as puppy mills.
Right.
So that's our primary focus. And right now, we still rank number 2 in the nation for the number of puppy mills, with about 250 in our state. And we just aren't getting the kinds of things going on out there that we'd like to see. This past summer, a couple of breeding facilities were shut down. I think the USDA probably played a significant part in those facilities being shut down. These places, some of the dogs were being subjected to just really horrible conditions. And if we'd had some better laws on our books, we might have been able to pursue those on a state level instead of just letting the USDA take these licenses and allowing these people to get rid of these dogs. Something more should have happened. And that's what we're working on. A lot of counties are very hesitant. The county attorneys and the sheriffs, they're very hesitant to move forward on these things because it can end up costing the county so much money. So there's just a lot of aspects of this that need to be addressed. It's not going to be easy.
Well, but it's not partisan. That's good, right?
It does tend to run on partisan lines.
Does.
Amazingly.
Okay, well that's unfortunate. That wasn't the case back in the.
And maybe it's more accurate to say it tends to be rural versus urban, which by definition is often
more partisan. Yeah.
So it's kind of that who hasn't killed a cat mentality.
One of the strongest advocates for regulating puppy mills was a rural lawmaker, Mark Kuhn. I mean, Democrat for what that's worth, but he a very strong advocate for regulating puppy mills.
Definitely exceptions out there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, Anyway, it's that again, your point is though it's not going to come easy. It's going to be a lot of work. Despite how high profile this case is, despite how many people are kind of appalled at the ruling, it's going to be work. And so if people want to get involved, I mean, your organization, Iowa Voters for Companion Animals, I got it right that time. Tell us a little bit more about that and how people can get involved through your organization.
Sure. Well, we have a website, of course, iowavca.org. And there is a link on there where a person can go in and register your name and email address, and you'll be on our mailing list. And we are a grassroots organization, so we send lots of information out and ask people to speak on behalf of the animals. The animals can't ask for these protections.
Right.
We have to speak for them. So we give people everything they need to do this. We provide you with the link to your legislators' emails. We give you sample language. We give you information that backs up what we're recommending. So we make it really easy, but we need people to do this. We can't do it. We need people to do it, but we will give you everything you need to do it and do it well.
All right. Yeah, that's that's good. Commendable. Yeah, it's again, I hope that we don't have any more of these conversations. You'd like to think that at some point society becomes more enlightened. People realize that this is not acceptable. That the expression "who hasn't killed a cat" becomes so abhorrent, so unacceptable that nobody ever says that anymore. Maybe we'll get to that point.
Right. Well, and we've only been doing this for 5 years, and we've already seen huge successes.
Yeah.
So we're on the right track.
Yeah. Yeah. When people get, I mean, who was it who said, don't tell me that organized people can't get anything accomplished. It's the only thing that's ever gotten anything accomplished. I mean, you need to, even if your voice may be small in terms of the minority, a minority of people active on an issue, if it's loud enough, if people in positions of power are hearing it, if the general public is moving your direction because you're making sense and they're hearing your message, it does get done. Sometimes it takes a while. But like you said, within 5 years, we've seen tremendous progress on this.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's encouraging.
Yes,
right.
Very much so.
Well, Mary, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, last time I had you on this program, you had a dog with you that, we share the same name.
My Eddie.
You're Eddie, yeah. I wouldn't say that your dog was named after me because
no.
But if it had been, it would have been an honor to me. But very cute little animal. How is Eddie doing?
Eddie's doing great. He's doing great. He's still a little scared doggy, and I gave him a terrible haircut the other day. He would have been very embarrassed to be on camera.
Oh, well, you need to, I would never cut my own hair either, by the way. All right. Well, anyway, tell Eddie I said hello.
I will.
And if he ever wants to go for a long walk, let me know.
I will.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks.
Mary LaHaye, folks, with the Iowa Voters for Companion Animals, thanks so much for joining us. And thanks to all the organizations, individuals, businesses, and events that make this show possible. Thanks to Gateway Market in particular for being my anchor sponsor and doing so much to provide a fantastic grocery store and cafe for our community here in central Iowa. Check them out, folks, at 20th and Woodland. That's Gateway Market and Cafe. I also want to thank Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering. Tally's is in Beaverdale at 2712 Beaver Ave, in fact. And this time of the year, great seating on the roof and also on the sidewalk. Outdoor seating, that's my kind of deal this time of the year. Also want to thank Hawk Restaurant, where I was going to go to brunch yesterday and had to bail out at the last minute, but they've got a great Sunday brunch, and I need to get there sometime soon. And you should think about that as well. Sunday brunch at Hawk Restaurant is until 2 o'clock, and again, 90% of the food they serve comes from Iowa farms. That's unique, and again, very impressive. I'll be back tomorrow, folks. As I indicated, we have some interesting conversations planned tomorrow. We're going to be talking with Pat Bertroche. He's a Republican buddy of mine who's a doctor, and he has a take on the situation at the Iowa Home for Juveniles in Toledo. We're also going to talk about the Coles Montessori program. That's our new Beat on Learning feature for this week. Thanks again, folks. Thanks to Maddie Arrington, my producer. Also to Webcast One Live for providing the studio. We'll be back tomorrow.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.